Hello and welcome to Drama Recaps. Today we will delve into the 1998 American teen fantasy comedy drama film called Pleasantville. Spoilers ahead. Shy student David imagines he's talking to a beauty in the schoolyard during class time. Teachers tell students about the challenges they'll face in adult life. Pleasantville, a quaint black and white sitcom that revolves around the Parker family, is David's absolute favorite show. He spends hours watching reruns, becoming an encyclopedia of sorts about the series, and even has plans to participate in a marathon trivia contest with a cash prize. His friend tests his knowledge and says he has no equal. His sister Jennifer is the complete opposite of him. She thrives in the limelight as one of the popular girls at school, investing considerable time in her looks to uphold her social status. Jennifer plans a home date with a popular guy from school, as their mom is out of town. They plan to watch an MTV concert that unfortunately coincides with David's Pleasantville marathon. A sibling rivalry ensues over the remote, which accidentally breaks, rendering the TV inoperative. Just as the twins fret over their broken remote, an elderly repairman arrives unannounced. While the twins are skeptical about his unexpected visit, he seems to know David's passion for Pleasantville and even tests his knowledge with trivia questions. Impressed by David's expertise, he gives them a peculiar-looking vintage remote free of charge. As the fight over the remote resumes, an accidental button press thrusts them into the world of Pleasantville, leaving them stranded in the Parkers' black and white living room. While David tries to negotiate with the repairman via the Parkers' old school television set, they're told that their new world is far superior to their old one. With no way out, David and Jennifer, now dubbed Bud and Mary Sue, have to adapt to their new roles. They navigate the peculiar town, with David drawing upon his knowledge of the show to blend in seamlessly. The town has its own quirks. Firefighters don't battle flames, instead, they save cats from trees. Jennifer's, now Mary Sue's, romantic interest in Pleasantville, Skip Martin, just happens to cross paths with her, causing her to consider Pleasantville as a not-so-bad place to be. At school, David, now Bud, introduces Jennifer to her Pleasantville friends, as they try to blend in and find their way back home. While playing basketball, Skip Martin approaches David with the intention of asking Jennifer out. However, David suggests that it might not be the right time, given that Jennifer, now Mary Sue, isn't quite herself yet, leaving Skip slightly crestfallen. In the school corridor, David convinces Jennifer to go on a date with Skip, to preserve the show's original storyline. As Jennifer prepares for her date, David heads to the local soda shop where he's employed. His boss, the affable middle-aged Bill Johnson, is the proprietor of this popular diner. The date progresses at the diner before Jennifer, growing restless, proposes a visit to the famed Lover's Lane. David, aware of his sister's intentions, fails to prevent them from leaving. At Lover's Lane, Jennifer introduces Skip to physical intimacy, which confuses him initially. Back at home, David anxiously waits for Jennifer's return, comforted by George and Betty. Bill stops by for a visit after closing up the shop, and when Betty comes over to greet him, they share a moment of unspoken connection. On his way home, Skip sees color for the first time, a red rose, and he marvels at its beauty. The next day at the gym, David finds the whole team in huddle, with Skip sharing tales from the previous night. Confronting Jennifer, David accuses her of introducing elements from their world into Pleasantville, but Jennifer counters, arguing that they should make the townsfolk aware of things that could potentially bring them joy. As David attempts to communicate with the repairman via TV, Jennifer's influence over the town continues to grow. As she enlightens the townsfolk about aspects of the real world, portions of Pleasantville gradually transition from grayscale to color, even the faces of people experiencing new emotional heights. The sudden appearance of colors startles the citizens, raising their suspicion. One afternoon, Betty inquires about the activities at Lover's Lane, leading to an awkward conversation with Jennifer explaining the concept of physical intimacy. Betty expresses her disbelief that George would partake in such activities, but is open to Jennifer's advice about self-pleasure. That night, as Betty explores this new concept, she experiences color for the first time. At the same moment, their front yard tree inexplicably bursts into flames, a phenomenon unheard of in Pleasantville. David calls upon the town's firefighters, who are unfamiliar with the concept of extinguishing a fire. Stepping up, David leads the firefighting effort, earning him a Medal of Valor from the town mayor, Big Bob. After the ceremony, David encounters his schoolmate Margaret, who presents him with homemade cookies, marking his first romantic exchange with a girl in both worlds. When he arrives at the diner for work, he discovers a group of teenagers waiting to hear stories of his firefighting exploits and life back home. His tales are met with fascination, and he even introduces them to literature through a storytelling session about the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. As he narrates, the once blank pages of the book come alive with words. Pleasantville undergoes a rapid transformation with colors permeating previously monochrome objects and people. The only exceptions are the town elders, including Mayor Big Bob, who perceive these changes as threats to the values of Pleasantville. The mayor proposes a new set of rules, recruiting George to the council to implement them. When George calls upon Betty to greet the mayor, she hides in the kitchen, visibly upset over her newfound chromatic transformation. David helps by applying makeup to her face, reverting her to a black and white appearance. One day, David gifts Bill a book of famous paintings, kindling a newfound passion within him. Gathering his courage, David asks Margaret out on a date, an invitation she readily accepts. Just as David's happiness peaks, he encounters the old repairman on his TV set. Despite his initial longing to return home, he now feels a sense of belonging in Pleasantville, causing him to switch off the TV and forsake his chance of going back to the real world. On their date, David and Margaret drive to Lover's Lane, where they witness flowers blooming in vivid colors, completely transforming the place into a lover's paradise. Elsewhere, Betty encounters one of Bill's paintings outside his diner, drawing her inside. Bill introduces her to the world of art through the book David gave him. Recognizing Betty's transformation into color, Bill compliments her beauty, leading to a forbidden romantic connection between them. Jennifer embraces an unexpected transformation. She develops an interest in her studies, neglecting her previous interests. When Skip invites her to Lover's Lane, she turns him down, much to his surprise. That same night, Pleasantville experiences its first rainstorm, complete with thunder and lightning. The townsfolk are initially terrified, but they gradually come to embrace this new experience. Arriving home to an empty house, George is distraught to find Betty missing and no dinner prepared. Seeking solace, he heads to the bowling alley to discuss the situation with his friends. They hold an emergency meeting, addressing their concerns about the peculiar happenings in town, their wives' growing independence, and their rebellious children. The next morning, Bill wakes up next to Betty in his art-laden diner, while Jennifer discovers that she too has turned colorful. When George attempts to convince Betty to attend a town meeting with him, she refuses, and to his shock, instructs him on how to prepare his own food. In the meantime, as the town's transformation into color accelerates, a ban on colored individuals in public places is imposed. The TV repairman tries once again to reach David, who stubbornly refuses to return the remote and go back to the real world. When Betty faces harassment from monochromatic teens, David steps in to defend her, turning colorful himself in the process. However, tension escalates in town when Bill's provocative painting of Betty on his diner window incites a riot. His diner is vandalized, books are burnt, and chromatic people are targeted in the streets. The town elders enforce new rules, limiting access to the library, banning loud music, and prohibiting the use of colorful paint. Despite the damage to his diner, Bill is visited by David, Jennifer, Betty, and other town residents who help him clean up. In the face of adversity, David emerges as a leader, rallying against Pleasantville's oppressive regulations. That night, he and Bill decide to paint a mural on a wall as a silent protest, leading to their arrest for violating the town's new rules. At their trial, David and Bill deliver a powerful speech about freedom and equality. Their words incite a chromatic transformation in the courtroom attendees, including Mayor Bob, who flees in shock upon his own transformation. Eventually, all of Pleasantville turns colorful, and its once circular main street now leads to other towns and cities. As they prepare to leave, Jennifer decides to stay behind, while David returns to the real world using the remote control. Once back, he comforts his distraught mother, advising her that life isn't always perfect. Meanwhile, the citizens of Pleasantville embrace their newfound freedom and vibrant lives. George inquires Betty about what might come next, and Betty responds with uncertainty. When the lens shifts to George, he's transformed into Bill.